Okay, good morning. On behalf of the Columbus Karma Take Some Choling, I'd like to welcome all of you for being here today. I think the reason that we're all here is not just because we have heard of the Chenrezig mantra, the famous mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, but because I think we all want to do what we can to improve ourselves and become better people. I think everybody wants to be a better person. I don't think I've met a single person who doesn't have a desire to have more happiness, to experience more happiness and more goodness in their life, and to experience more love and happiness in their life. But of course, we're always up against the question of how do we do this? How do we accomplish more happiness? How do we accomplish more goodness and love? From the Buddhist perspective, we are somewhat we already have a little bit of a head start in that the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago when the Buddha gave his first teachings. He taught that all of us have a mind, and that mind has as its basic nature sanity and goodness. And if we can work on ourselves to help bring out mind's basic nature of happiness, goodness, and peace, that we will experience the same state that was experienced by the Buddha Shakyamuni, that is Buddhahood or enlightenment. Therefore, this essence, that is this enlightened essence that's within us, is called Buddha nature. Now, you would think that would give us a head start. And in a way, it sort of does, because you could say that our Buddha nature, our basic goodness, is what has gotten us this far in our lives. Even though we've been through a lot of difficulties in our lives, we're still here and we're still able to improve ourselves and work with ourselves and be happier. So you could say we do have a head start. From another point of view, you might wonder, well, if Buddha essence is our essence, why aren't we experiencing Buddha right now? The answer to this is coming also from the teachings of the Buddha, who said that our Buddha nature is like a sun hidden behind the clouds. And those clouds are called the adventitious stains. They're karmic accumulation, our emotionality, our mental afflictions, and then our habitual tendencies, and then finally our basic ignorance, that is ignorance of the existence of our Buddha nature. So we need to find a way to dispel these veils so that we can experience our Buddha nature completely. And so this is why the Buddha devised the various methods and practices of his tradition in order to dispel the obstacles of karma and mental afflictions, also habitual tendencies, and the cognitive obscuration of ignorance. All of his methods serve to dispel those clouds of ignorance so that the Buddha nature can shine forth. Those of you who are familiar with the Buddha's Four Noble Truths know that the Buddha said that suffering was part of life, suffering had a cause, suffering has a solution, and there's a path that leads to the end of suffering. What we're going to be concerned with today is that fourth, the path that leads us to the end of suffering. The Buddha said that selfishness is at the heart of all of our suffering. We have a concept of a solid, real, and unchanging self, and a solid, real, and unchanging environment. And because of our fixation on our self concept and our fixation on what we perceive to be the real characteristics of the external world, because of this duality, we suffer. And if we can meditate and go beyond duality, then we will experience our Buddha nature and gain liberation from our veils and confusion. And so you can brief the Eightfold Noble Path down to the four statements that the Buddha made. Do no harm, practice virtue, and tame your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. With that last one being a summary, do no harm means not to harm yourself, not to harm others. Practice virtue means to take care of yourself and benefit others. And tame the mind means to meditate so that we can come to an understanding of our minds and remove and dispel the veils that cover our Buddha nature. Now, Tibetan Buddhism is only one of many, many forms of Buddhism existing in the world today. In the Tibetan tradition, we practice all of the methods given by the Buddha during his time on earth. We practice all of them. And they're sometimes called the three vehicles or the three yanas. The word Y-A-N-A means a vehicle, and it means also method or path. And so these yanas are classified as three: the Hinayana, which is called the smaller vehicle, the Mahayana, which is called the larger vehicle, and then the Vajrayana, which is called the indestructible vehicle. If we look at the methods that the Buddha gave for gaining liberation and happiness in the Hinayana, they consist of ethical behavior to help calm our karmic accumulation and calm our emotionality. And by doing ethical behavior, we can also have the freedom of mind to meditate, which is the second main practice of the Hinayana. The Hinayana is called smaller vehicle, not because it's less in any way, shape, or form, but it has to do with the motivation of the person who's practicing it. Most of us start practicing some form of dharma and some form of spirituality because we're experiencing difficulty in our life. And so we're at first only concerned with our own relief from suffering and our own coming to happiness. But gradually, as we practice ethics, morality, and meditation in the Hinayana, our motivation will shift into the Mahayana motivation of the Maha or greater yana. It's not called greater because it's better. It's called greater because it refers to the motivation of the person who's practicing it. In the Hinayana, our motivation is for our own liberation. And in the Mahayana, it's for the liberation of both ourselves and all beings. And it is in the Mahayana that the Bodhisattva ideal is taught. A Bodhi, the word Bodhi means awakening. And the word sattva means a being. So a being who has the mind of awakening. And so, so that is where the Bodhisattva ideal comes from, the people who take the vow to become a Bodhisattva and a Buddha, just as the Buddhas of the past have done, by practicing the Eightfold Noble Path and so on. So this is the Mahayana. It's considered to be a very powerful method for counteracting the selfishness that is at the heart of most of our suffering. Why? Because it's very easy to tame one's selfishness with ethics and morality and meditation from the Hinayana, but we don't uproot selfishness completely until we start to practice the methods and technique of the Mahayana. Giving of ourselves in service to others eradicates self-clinging at the root. And so by eradicating self-clinging at the root, we can achieve the liberation that the Buddha promised in a better and quicker way. And then finally, the Vajrayana is called, Vajra means indestructible, and it refers to the idea that it works with the mind directly. The techniques of the Vajrayana work with the mind directly. It is, in fact, sometimes the word Vajra is translated as diamond. And the reason it's translated as diamond is because in technical lore, it says that only a diamond can cut a diamond. Only one diamond can cut another. Therefore, it refers to our mind, our mind in itself. Only the mind can see the mind, only the mind can liberate the mind, and therefore the techniques of the Vajrayana have to do with the mind itself. There are two paths in the Vajrayana, one that uses deep penetrating insight, that's called the path of liberation, and then the second uses the practices of mantra and yogic discipline, and that's called the path of skillful means. Mantra practice is what we'll be talking about today. Mantra practice transforms our body, our speech, and our mind through meditation and visualization. If we look at mundane life, we can see that visualization plays a big role in people's change. For example, if a person wants to gain more capability in sports or in athletics, they will visualize themselves actually doing the task of hitting a baseball or sinking a basket in basketball. And if they can visualize themselves doing it, they are more successful when they attempt to do it physically. And so in a way, I like to think of the visualization and mantra practices of the Vajrayana as being very similar to the visualization practices used by athletes to succeed in their sport, or by those people who use visualization to help their treatments for cancer and other illnesses. So visualization practice can help us change things because it works with the very deepest level of our mind. And so I always say that if a baseball player can visualize themselves being a better athlete, we can visualize ourselves as being better people. And so during the Buddha's life on earth, he described in his sutras and tantras the lives and liberation of many beings. He described the liberation of all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and he said that chanting the names of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas was a way of filling the mind with virtue to help us connect to our Buddha nature and to dispel the clouds of our ignorance. And therefore, the practice of mantra has come from the Buddha himself. And the mantras themselves, many of the mantras themselves were given by the Buddha. And so the practice we're going to be talking about today is the practice of Chenrezig, the Bodhisattva of compassion. Those of you who are familiar with the story of Chenrezig, he was mentioned in the sutras. He was the person who spoke the wisdom of the Heart Sutra. Those of you who are chanters of the Heart Sutra will know that on Vulture Peak, on a specific occasion, when the Buddha was in the company of many monks, nuns, and bodhisattvas, Shariputra asked a question to Chenrezig. And these two disciples of the Buddha had a conversation while the Buddha was deep in meditation. And that sutra, the Heart Sutra, became famous throughout the world for its ability to explain the concept of limitlessness, which some people call emptiness, the fact that mind is limitless and is capable of achieving enlightenment. And so Chenrezig has a storied history. And in his book, Chenrezig, Lord of Love, Bokar Rinpoche tells the story of Chenrezig as a being who basically, when he took the Bodhisattva vow, saying he would gain liberation for the benefit of others, he made the most powerful possible Bodhisattva vow in that he said, I will remain behind in samsara until all beings are liberated. In other words, Chenrezig said, I will stay behind and I will be the last one to turn out the light in samsara before the end of samsara. So he said he would be with us forever. And all of the other aspiring bodhisattvas in the assembly turned and bowed toward Chenrezig for the bravery of saying that he would stay in samsara and help. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, when asked about this later, this is my teacher and Lama's teacher and the founder of the Columbus KTC. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, when he was asked about this, he says, it doesn't mean that Chenrezig is going to not become an enlightened being. It doesn't mean that he's going to hold back his awakening. He's probably been enlightened for a very, very long time, but he continues to manifest as a 10th level bodhisattva among us in order to help lead us to liberation. So we don't need to worry too much about Chenrezig. I think he's fine, but we really do appreciate the fact that he's staying behind to help and guide all of us. The particular text that we're going to be working from is a text that was written many centuries ago. See if I can find this. If you were able to download some of the handouts from today, there's one called A Short Practice of Chenrezig. The Short Practice of Chenrezig was written oh gosh, I think I'm gonna get my centuries wrong. Lama, can you help me with Thangtong Gyalpo's? No, okay. I think it was 14th or 15th century. Yeah, that
is correct.
Okay, yeah, okay. And so he was a Tibetan saint who was considered to be an emanation of Chenrezig because he saved the lives of many people by building iron suspension bridges in ancient Tibet. They were the first suspension bridges in that entire region. And he built them out of iron chains. And so this is why when you see pictures of Thangtong Gyalpo, he's either holding a ball of iron or he's holding an iron chain to symbolize his bodhisattva activity of building these bridges. Thangtong Gyalpo had a vision of Chenrezig. And after having this vision of Chenrezig, liberating all beings in the world, he wrote this sadhana that was called For the Benefit of All Beings, or to liberate all beings. And it was a practice that surrounded the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. So the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum is the center of this chant. And also in the book Chenrezig, Lord of Love, Bokar Rinpoche explains that the name, the words Om Mani Padme Hum refer to Chenrezig's name. The Om refers to the enlightened body of the Buddha, and then the, and I'm going to say enlightened body. I'm going to type this into chat. The enlightened body of the Buddha. Mani is the, and Hong, excuse me, Hong is the enlightened, I can't spell, the enlightened mind of the Buddha. So Om and Hung at the two ends refer to the enlightened body and mind of the Buddha, and Mani means jewel, and Padme means lotus. And so by saying the name of Chenrezig, he who holds the jewel and the lotus, we are saying the name of Chenrezig and calling upon him and asking him to bless us. So that's a little bit about the origin of Chenrezig, a little bit about the origin of the mantra, and a little bit about the Thangtong Gyalpo and his sadhana. So I'll stop here and see if anybody has questions about this first part before we launch into the visualizations. You might have to, let's see, if anybody has a question, you can type it into chat. And then I will unmute everybody for a minute here. Okay. So everybody's I think everybody's going to be unmuted, I think. Can people hear? No. Oh boy, technical problems. Please stand by. Okay, let's see. I don't know. Can people, anybody have any questions?
I do, Lama Kathy, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
So this goes way back to when you first started the talk. And
Sure.
this is, there are three things that you say is the teachings of the Buddha. And I keep hearing them over and over again, but they don't seem to stick. So it was tame your mind, do no harm, tame your mind. And if you could repeat that.
Do no harm, and I'm typing it in the chat too.
Thank you.
Yeah, do no harm, practice virtue, tame your mind. And then the last one is this is the teaching of the Buddha. And then there was a question, another question in chat, and that was Chenrezig a man? In the story, he is, in the story of him taking the Bodhisattva vow, yes, he was a man. And then in stories about Chenrezig in the Eastern Asian tradition, Chenrezig is Kuan Yin, a female bodhisattva, which just goes to show that Chenrezig really gets the whole business of there being equanimity and equality. He just gets it. Let's see. And it says, you said there were two parts of the Vajrayana. Oh, yeah. Okay. The two parts of the Vajrayana are the path of liberation, which is practices such as Mahamudra and Dzogchen. Oop, can't spell. And then the path of skillful means are practices such as mantra. Okay. Other questions? Okay. Okay. Well, I thought I would, oh, here's one. So the puja text was written by Thangtong Gyalpo. Yes, yeah. Yes, the basic puja, or the basic text, was written by Thangtong Gyalpo, but other prayers were added. And in fact, in the original composition, Thangtong Gyalpo refers to two other prayers that are occasionally added. One was a 7-branch prayer, and the other was a prayer to liberate beings from all 6 realms. One was written by the great saint Pema Karpo, and the other one was written by none other than Gelongma Palmo, the wonderful, amazing woman who created the Nyungne fasting retreat. So, so those 2 prayers are often added. And in fact, those of you who are familiar with Karma Triana Dharma Chakra and KTCs will know the longer version of this is used at KTD, and we chant it in Columbus as well. Those 2 prayers, the prayer to liberate beings from samsara, as well as the 7-branch prayer. I have it in my mind that Pema Karpo wrote the 7-branch prayer, and Galama Palmo wrote the prayer to liberate beings from samsara, but I'm going to have to look that up to be absolutely sure. Don't want to steer you wrong. Time for one more question. Going once? Okay. I'll go ahead and mute the participants again. So there we go. Okay. Oh, Lamo, I forgot to ask. Lamo, yeah, I'm sorry about that. Did you have anything you wanted to add to the first part of the presentation?
No, it was fine. Perfect.
This is kind of the history part. Next, I'm going to talk about the sadhana itself. So if you have the short Chenrezig practice, I'd like for you to open up and take a look at that. I'm going to attempt to share screen here. This might work, this might not. Okay. I think it's going to work. Let me try it. Hey, all right. So, all right. So, so you can see, I'm going to make this disappear. There we go. You can see in the center of your screen the picture of Chenrezig, the Bodhisattva of compassion. And in iconography, he is depicted as having 4 arms. And these 4 arms are indicative of the 4 immeasurable qualities, or 4 immeasurable meditations. The joy, equanimity, love, and compassion. Joy, equanimity, love, and compassion. His 4 arms symbolize his accomplishment of the 4 immeasurables. In his outer right hand, he's holding a rosary, and it's often in iconography twisted in the form of a figure 8, and this symbolizes his constant, the circle being constant, his constant compassion for all beings. And so he's depicted as holding this in his outer right hand, and he's telling these rosary beads as a way of talking about his love for all beings without exception. His outer left hand is holding the stem of a lotus flower. The lotus flower in iconography is symbolic of the Bodhisattva who lives in this world and is not stained by it, just as a lotus flower is rooted in the mud but blooms above it. So therefore, his quality is that he is a bodhisattva, and that his compassion for beings is endless. And in his 2 center hands, he is holding a jewel, which is a wish-fulfilling jewel from Asian legend. We don't have I think in Middle Eastern legends, it's a magic lamp, and you can rub that magic lamp and get your wishes fulfilled. But in this particular legend, there's a wish-fulfilling jewel, which if you have it, it will grant all of your wishes. Well, the jewel that Chenrezig is holding symbolizes our Buddha nature, which if that Buddha nature is ripened and brought to liberation, can then fulfill all the wishes for ourselves and others. Chenrezig is also depicted as sitting with his legs crossed in what's called the Vajra posture. And this Vajra posture means that he is unmoving in his awakening. He has, his hair is black and shiny. It starts in a top knot at the top of his head. Half of it is on the top of his head and the rest of it flows down his shoulders. The indication of this, or the meaning of this, is that enlightenment is one thing, but its manifestations can be many. So that's the idea. And his hair is shiny black because no color can be added to black. It is complete. He also is wearing a crown with 5 jewels on it. This symbolizes the transformation of 5 types of mental affliction into the 5 types of wisdom, which is what happens when a being becomes enlightened. All of their conflicting emotions are transformed into wisdom. He's also wearing a total of 13 silks, ornaments, and jewels, the earrings, the crown, the earrings, the 3 sets of necklaces, armlets, bracelets, anklets, and a belt with tinkling bells hanging from it. And according to the 15th Karmapa, whose commentary Khenpo Rinpoche said we should use, the 15th Karmapa gets very granular with these details. He said that he is wearing a white silk blouse a white blouse of the finest fabric from Benares. So it was very definite about where it came from. And then leggings and a red silk skirt. So he doesn't give the symbolisms of these 2 colors, but the idea is that Chenrezig is part of the Padma family, which is the transformation of attachment, symbolizes the transformation of attachment, and red is the color associated with it. Chenrezig is sitting on a lotus flower, again symbolic of love and and then the moon disc that he is sitting on is symbolic of compassion. So the lotus he's sitting on is symbolic of love, and the moon disc is symbolic of compassion. And above the top of Chenrezig's head, which is not depicted here on this drawing, is Chenrezig's guru, the Buddha Amitabha, who is the Lord of the Padma family. So that is the Lord of his family, and so that's Chenrezig's guru. One other detail is over Chenrezig's left shoulder is the skin of a Krishnasara deer, which is a legendary animal in Asian legend. It is gentle, like the gentle and pure, like the idea of the Western idea of the unicorn, another mythical animal. It's not that Chenrezig went out hunting. It's not like that. It's that as a bodhisattva in iconography, he is depicted as being dressed in a way that symbolizes his inner qualities. And the inner quality that's symbolized by this deer is that the legends surrounding the Krishnasara deer is that the deer is so gentle and so loving that it would actually lay down its life to benefit others. And so Chenrezig therefore has that level of compassion and love that he would lay down his life for others. So that's a little bit about the image of Chenrezig. And I'm going to see if anybody has any questions about this, or Lamo, do you have anything you want to add for us? Sorry, I unmuted you. I'm sorry. My problem. Sorry about that.
There we go. I
Yeah.
unmuted myself too. That was so funny.
Okay.
My favorite part of the visualization is behind Chenrezig is a stainless moon, a full moon backrest. And this is the symbolism that he will never turn his back on suffering. He will always look at it. And I think that's just such a beautiful iconography. Is just so rich with this. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's great. Somebody in the chat asked about the name of the deer. I am not sure of the spelling.
It's Tinasara, Tinasara.
Okay, thank you. It's Krishnasara in Sanskrit and
Yes.
Trinasara in Tibetan. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so there you go. All right, any other questions about the iconography of Chenrezig? Going once? Okay, great. So, then what we'll do is, and again, in the sadhana, you'll see, if you turn to the page that says refuge and bodhicitta on it, maybe let's see if I can get this in front of us. If I can get this in front of us. I'm going to try and see if I can share the screen. And if so, we'll be able to show you. Okay, now we're going to go to the second page here. So those of you who don't have it and can see the screen here, you see it says it starts with the refuge and bodhicitta prayer. All Buddhist texts begin with refuge and bodhicitta so that we aim our practice in the right direction, that is the direction of achieving awakening for the benefit of beings. And so in the English it says, in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the supreme community, until I reach enlightenment, I go for refuge. By practicing the 6 perfections, generosity, and so forth, in order to benefit beings, may I achieve Buddhahood. Now, the visualization is given in the left-hand column here. So basically, I'm sorry, it actually starts on the previous page. We imagine that Chenrezig is in space in front of you. His form is not solid, but is seen as being illusion-like and made of light. He is white in color. The symbolism of him being white in color is the purity of his motivation. And he is sitting cross-legged on an open lotus flower topped by a white disk of the moon. And so he is actually, when you're taking refuge, you visualize Chenrezig as being in front of you and slightly above you in space. By the way, this is in accordance to 2 sources. I use 2 sources in my description of the Chenrezig sadhana. The first source is the 15th Karmapa's commentary called A Continuous Reign to Benefit Beings. The second source is Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche's teaching on the Chenrezig practice. And Khenpo Rinpoche has written a book called Chenrezig, and that book gives his commentary on the 15th Karmapa's composition. So in any case, those are my 2 or 3 sources. So Chenrezig is visualized as being in front of you, and that he is all of the beings in whom we take refuge. We think of Chenrezig, who is in front of us, as being our teacher primarily, but then all of the great and enlightened beings of the past and future. And we think not only is Chenrezig in front of us, but surrounding us are all of the beings of the 6 realms in a great vast crowd. We're not leaving a single being out. This is a really helpful practice if you are having a conflict with someone. If you're having a conflict with a friend or an enemy, or perhaps you're trying to have compassion for specific politicians or people who you're having trouble with, imagine that they are in this great crowd of beings who's surrounding you, and that you are leading them as though you were their umze or chant leader. You are leading them in taking refuge in Chenrezig, who is in front of you. And so thinking that Chenrezig, made of light, is in front of you, and thinking that all sentient beings are surrounding you, you lead this vast crowd in taking refuge. And after you've taken refuge, then you imagine that Chenrezig, who's in front of you, shines light upon you and shines light upon all sentient beings, and washing away all of our ignorance and all of our negativities. And then he dissolves into light and merges with us, blessing our stream of being. And this is an incredibly valuable thing, because if we can imagine that Chenrezig is blessing us, it will remove anything about us that might feel not ready to practice. Sometimes when we sit on our cushion, we don't feel pure, we feel unworthy, we feel like we're kind of confused, and we're bringing our confusion to our seat. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche has said on numerous occasions, It's okay to practice even when you're in a bad mood. It's okay to practice even if you feel that you're not worthy, and that part of the practice itself is to remove those feelings and to give you a new, fresh start for yourself. He also said we can make an offering to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of all of our negative mental afflictions at the beginning of a practice. So there's no reason we cannot do practice. So at any case, then what we have done then so far is we've talked about the first part, the visualizations for the first part of the Chenrezig practice, that is refuge and bodhicitta, imagining that Chenrezig is in front of us and that we're surrounded by sentient beings, and that at the conclusion, he shines light upon us, removes all of our negativities, and then dissolves into us and blesses us. So I'm gonna hop back to chat for a second and see if there's any questions about this part. Refuge and bodhicitta, any questions about this part? Okay, all right. Okay, so then we'll move into the second part, which is the the visualization of Chenrezig. So it says here in the English on the right-hand column, it says, on the crown of my head and the heads of all beings filling space, upon a white lotus and a moon disk is the seed syllable Hre. From this letter appears the Supreme Exalted One, Avalokiteshvara. Avalokiteshvara is a form of Sanskrit, and it is the name of Chenrezig in Sanskrit. Luminescent white, radiating 5 colored rays of light. He gazes with eyes of compassion. Of his 4 hands, the first pair are held palms together at the heart. The lower hold a crystal rosary on the right hand and the white lotus in the left hand. Rosary right, lotus left. It's easy to remember. He is adorned with garments of silk and precious ornaments and wears an antelope or Chinasara deer skin as an upper garment. He is crowned by the Buddha of boundless light, Amitabha. His 2 legs rest in the Vajra posture. His back is supported by an immaculate moon disk. He is in essence all of the sources of refuge combined. So I'm going to switch to let's see if we can find it. There we go. This is a set of images that were copied out of Chenrezig, Lord of Love. You see the seed syllable Hri is there in the center of the screen. For those of you who say to yourself, wow, that's beautiful, but I don't think I can visualize that, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche has given a workaround for that. This seed syllable can be seen instead as a small white sphere of light, a small white sphere of light. And when you visualize this, according to Khenpo Rinpoche, you visualize this above your head as well as above the head of all sentient beings. Now, this and how far above your head should this be seen? I have to tell you a very cute story. One time I talked to a gentleman and he said he was having a hard time putting Chenrezig on his head because Chenrezig kept sliding off. Anyway, but this problem will not happen if you visualize it the way Khenpo Rinpoche encourages us to visualize it. He said, visualize it as being 1 cubit, which is from the tip of your elbow to the tip of the highest part of your hand, that it's that far above your head. It's like 1.5 feet above your head and hovering in space. And that the Hri syllable on top of a lotus flower and moon disk. Okay, so lotus flower, moon disk above your head with the seed syllable Hri on top of it. Think of it as all being brilliantly made of light, brilliant light, shining. And in the 15th Karmapa's commentary, the 15th Karmapa says that you think that from this Hri light, this Hri seed syllable on top of your head, light comes out. The light goes out and up and makes offerings to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And the light then goes outward and down toward all sentient beings, purifying them and giving them everything they need. So this Kri syllable on the lotus and moon above your head enacts Buddha activity. It makes offerings to those above and offers compassion to those below. And then the lights are withdrawn back up into the Kri syllable, and instantly the Kri syllable becomes Chenrezig. What's brilliant about this is happening whether we are able to visualize it or not. I spoke to the great master, the Choje Lama, Lama Namse, and he said, you know, I said to him, some of these visualizations, they're pretty complicated and it's hard to do. He said, don't worry. He said, it's happening anyway. So we can have some confidence that above our head is a lotus flower and moon disk, and on top of that is the Kri. Offerings go up to the Buddhas, down to sentient beings to benefit them, and then Chenrezig appears from that seed syllable. This makes me really happy. I love doing this part of the sadhana. Why? Because this is happening not just for me, but for all of the beings everywhere in the world. So that means that on all of the little insects, all of the little fish swimming in the sea, all of the politicians in Washington, they all have a lotus flower, moon disk, and a Kri syllable above their heads, and then Chenrezig appears above the head of every single one of them. If we're having trouble believing in our own Buddha nature, this can help us for sure. So that's a little bit about how Chenrezig appears from the Kri syllable. If you are interested in further reading, make a note. Let me see here, make a note and look up the book, Creation and Completion. Completion by Trungpa Rinpoche. The book Creation and Completion by Trungpa Rinpoche explains a lot of details about why we do what we do in visualization practice. And one of the things he says happens there is that when we visualize above our head a seed syllable that then becomes a Buddha, he said we're reenacting the process of conception, reimagining ourselves as we begin, and because when our bodies begin as tiny zygotes, right? That's what we learned in biology, right? And then from that tiny zygote, eventually a baby developed, and then that became us. Well, when we are remaking ourselves through enlightenment, we start with a small seed syllable, which is symbolic of the conception, and then it turns into Chenrezig, the fully formed individual. So yes, the question is, yes, does the visualization, does he face the same direction as we are or facing toward us? Yes, during this self-visualization, during the visualization of ourselves with Chenrezig above our heads, he is facing outward in the same direction. Another person asked, what does it mean that he is the essence of all who take refuge? What this means is that we think of Chenrezig as being all of our sources of refuge combined in one. That way we don't have to like imagine lots and lots and lots of Buddhas and be worried whether we're leaving one out. We can see Chenrezig as embodying them all. Okay, then I'm going to go on if that's okay, because we're almost to our break time. But I'm going to try to add a couple more things first, and then we'll have our break. Okay, going back to the short sadhana. After we have visualized Chenrezig above our head, we say a prayer of praise. We say, Lord, unmarred by imperfection, body white in color, whose head is ornamented with a perfect Buddha, gazing on beings with the eye of compassion, to Chenrezig I reverently prostrate. So we think that we are leading all sentient beings in this prayer, praying to Chenrezig and asking for his blessing. I guess you could say that we are acknowledging that we are imperfect in this prayer, and we are acknowledging that Chenrezig is perfect, and saying, may we become like you, is essentially what we're asking in this. And so what I'd like to do next is I'd like to describe this very last part, and then we'll have our break. So after having prayed like this, in the text it says, having offered this one-pointed supplication, light rays emanating from the exalted one's body, meaning the Chenrezig above our heads, purify impure actions and appearances and confused mental states. The outer environment becomes the pure land of Dewa Chen, the blissful. For the beings within, their body, speech, and mind become the body, speech, and mind of the Lord Avalokiteshvara. Appearances, sound, and mental states become inseparable from emptiness. And so while we're chanting this verse, or if you like, if you're working behind the scenes, so to speak, if you're working at home with this, if you have like a situation where you're on your own and practicing this, well, you can try to do it while you're chanting, or you can pause and do the visualization before you chant this section, or after. While chanting this verse, we imagine that the Chenrezig above our heads bathes us and all sentient beings with light, which washes away all of our ignorance and negativity and changes all of us into Chenrezigs. In keeping with the earlier visualizations, this Chenrezig that we become is not solid and is instead made of light. We also have the same form and attributes as Chenrezig. Now, you remember at the very beginning, we talked about wanting to be better people, and that we had a head start because we have Buddha nature, and that our Buddha nature, like the sun hidden behind a cloud, is hidden behind our four veils: our veil of negative karma, our veil of mental affliction, our veil of habitual tendency, and our veil of basic ignorance. What we imagine at this moment is that all of those veils are instantaneously washed away by light coming to us from the form of Chenrezig above our heads. We imagine for a moment that all of our negativities are gone. Usually we can imagine this for a moment at least. We can release our hold on our negativities, release our hold on our karma, release our hold on everything for just an instant, and imagine that light comes from Chenrezig and turns us into Chenrezig ourselves. We remain seated in meditation, but we imagine the four arms of Chenrezig. We imagine the jeweled crown, the shiny, beautiful black hair and the headdress, the jewelry, everything. And we imagine that all the way down to the bottom of the lotus flower, that we are sitting in meditation as Chenrezig. We see ourselves transformed in this way, and we also see all sentient beings transformed in the same way. In other words, all of our friends, all of our enemies, all of the politicians in Washington, they suddenly become completely purified and turned into Chenrezig. And we imagine, furthermore, that this light transforms the entire world around us, and that it's no longer the mundane world in which we are surrounded in everyday life, but it's actually Dewa Chen. Dewa means happy and Chen means great. So this is the pure realm of the Buddha Amitabha. This is the pure realm where Chenrezig resides. This is the pure realm that our world has suddenly, instantaneously become. And we then recite the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, thinking that we and all beings have been transformed into Chenrezig. So I'm going to stop here for a second and look at questions, and then we'll take our break. Do I remember correctly that the Hri faces left? Yes, the Hri syllable, and I have my little Hri syllable here, faces to the left, so that a person standing on your left would be able to read it. This means that the Visarga, which are these two circles, are facing to the back, so it can be viewed edge on from the left. That's a really tiny detail. And for a lot of people, it's probably too much tiny detail. And so what Khenpo Rinpoche said is, don't worry about the tiny details. It's great if you can do it, but if not, that seed syllable as a small white sphere is just fine. It's a small white sphere that is made of light and shines with light of the 5 colors. See if there's any other questions. The Buddhas we send light offerings to up also down their blessings, further enhancing the light and compassion we send to all sentient beings. The questioner is asking about that part at the beginning where Hri sends light up to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and down towards sentient beings, and then returns to the Hri syllable. And then the Hri syllable actually disappears and becomes Chenrezig. It does not stay there. So I don't really know if there is a specific function to it other than that which is described in Creation and Completion, which is that it for the purposes of the meditation, enlightenment is enlightenment. So I think that's kind of where we're going. Because what enhances our ability to benefit beings is the removal of the 4 veils. The removal of the 4 veils is what enhances our ability to benefit sentient beings, because when the 4 veils are removed by Chenrezig in that last section, they're dispelled and our Buddha nature can shine. So there's no increase or decrease there. Okay, so let's see here. Asking one I've been hung up on for a while. As the story goes in the green Tara practice, Tara was born from a tear on Chenrezig when he felt he had failed beings. My mind is hung up on this as to why we would not just practice green Tara, even though Chenrezig obviously is completely lovely. Okay, yeah, I think Khenpo Rinpoche said this once. He said, right now we're not enlightened beings. I mean, he said, kind of face it, we're not enlightened beings right now. And because we are not enlightened beings, and because we have so much karmic accumulation from previous lifetimes, we are going to have preferences. We'll like one particular Buddha or Bodhisattva, and we won't like another Buddha or Bodhisattva. So Rinpoche said, we have to remember that all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are the same in essence. They're all one in essence. In other words, they're all the same and equal in their enlightenment. But because of our karmic accumulation, we might prefer one to the other. And I think maybe the thing to do is, in your own mind, try to, if you wish to do Tara practice, that's wonderful. And but try your best to let go of any story you are telling yourself about why one deity is preferred to another. It's probably better not to think of one Buddha as being not as good as another Buddha. Just saying, I'm going to choose to practice this one, not this one is no good for this reason or this reason or this reason. That way we don't create an obstacle in our mind by creating a negative story as to why one Buddha is better than the other. Does that make sense? Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are beyond dualism, and so it doesn't help us to make up stories about why one is better than the other. So what you might try doing is try to say to yourself, I am going to pray that this light that shines upon me from Chenrezig dispels all of my ignorance, including my preferences, and that it allows me to love all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas equally, even though I choose to practice one. Does that help? I hope that helps. Because anything that you're hung up on, it's probably something that you need to look at and begin to engage and work with. And we can always talk more about that individually if you'd like to chat. And then here's another question. Can you explain what that last line actually means? And by the last line, I'm thinking, oh yeah, yes, everything becomes inseparable from emptiness. I will explain that first thing after the break. Yes, explain what the last line means, beginning with appearances, sounds. Yes, I'll explain that right after the break. You can find the paycheck. Yep, that's right. Can you discuss the 5 colors? Yes. What is a small white sphere that shines with the light of all 5 colors? The small circles on the left of the Hri. Do you have any information on how to apply Om Mani Padme Hum to deceased loved ones? Okay, so those will be the final questions that we handle before the break. Yes, I was speaking too quickly, so I did confuse things a little bit, and I apologize. Let's go back in our minds to the refuge in bodhicitta. For the refuge in bodhicitta, Chenrezig is in front of us, shines light upon us, and then dissolves into us. Then, the next section, which is saying above our head and above the head of all sentient beings, is a lotus flower, a moon disk, and a Hri. That Hri is what can be depicted by a small white sphere. That Hri syllable is what can be seen as a small white sphere. It's shining white but like it's the radiance of it is all 5 colors, which indicates that white contains all 5 colors, just as black contains all 5 colors. You know, so in other words, for this visualization, we see it as being white and shining with all 5 colors. Then light goes up to make offerings to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, down to offer compassion to all sentient beings, and then when the lights return to that sphere, that sphere or that Hri then changes instantly into Chenrezig, and the sphere disappears. I hope that helps make that clear. Did that clear that up for you, Leonomy? Yeah, okay, very good. The 5 colors is a much longer teaching. And we'll get into that in the second part, because we're going to talk about the 5 colors in the context of the 6-syllable mantra. And the little circles to the left of the Visarga, no, the white, the Hri syllable is white, shining with the 5 colors, all parts of it. Do you have any information on how to apply Om Mani Padme Hum to deceased loved ones? The simple way to say this is that you can imagine that Chenrezig is above the head of someone who has died, or someone who is dying, or someone who is sick. And that as you recite the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, Chenrezig shines light upon them, purifying them of all of their veils and difficulties. And then Chenrezig dissolves into light and merges with them. You don't need to chant anything other than Om Mani Padme Hum with that visualization, and you'll benefit them. Okay, because I want everybody to have a break, we're going to do 5 minutes. It is now 12 minutes past the hour, and we'll rejoin at 17 minutes past the hour. I'm going to turn off my microphone and also my video, and then I'll be back really
Hi, Caitlin.
Hello.
It's good to see you.
You too. I think you were the one who first told me about Chenrezig.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah, for mantra meditation class.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I was referring to this short practice, so now you have it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's helpful to, I've trying to put all the files into one folder so that I can keep track of them.
Yeah, me too. A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like Columbus KTC has more programs every few weeks.
Well, we have Lama Kathy to thank for that, and Lama Tom and Lama Adam now too. We're very, very blessed to have a teacher. And now that we're virtual, everybody has. Yeah. You have Lama Nancy, yeah.
Yeah. We're starting to talk about meeting again, but it's a smaller group here, so.
Do it on Zoom.
Mhm.
It's easy. Yeah. Safer. It's safer on Zoom unless you go outside somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know about Michigan, but Columbus is like a steam bath right now.
It's been very hot lately. Today, this morning, actually, it's cool for the first time and seems like a long time.
You have a storm yesterday like we did? Yeah.
Yeah, cooled things off a lot.
Yeah, but now it's more humid.
Exactly. That's the Midwest trade-off.
Hey, Marilyn,
Yeah?
what do you think?
What do I think what?
Because I highlighted my hair yesterday.
Oh. Let me put it on speaker. Oh, I like
mean,
it. It turned
Here's
out
gray, but I left the gray there because I like the gray, but I mean, it said $160 or something, $12.
wow.
I used so little too because I was nervous. I didn't know, but I remember what you said because I'm being out in the sun so much, my hair. So I just did it really lightly. I didn't like the smell of bleach though. It's, boy, is that stuff hard to smell.
Oh, it stinks, but yeah.
Whew. But it was fun. I was shocked how little, Oh, well, I should talk to Julie.
Really went.
Wait a minute, Julie, how did you do all that? Did you do that?
I did.
Did you have to take the color out first or did you just color over?
I've just been pulling color out and pulling color out and pulling.
Yeah.
I've bleached it like 5 times now.
Yeah, I had no idea this highlighter stuff had bleach in it, but because my stylist doesn't use bleach, because she said I have so much gray now, she said it wouldn't work. It works fine.
Yeah, it does.
Well, I'm
So
sorry.
I can't wait. I've already have on my calendar in 3 weeks. I'm going to go way up.
Sorry to interrupt the makeup tutorial here. I'm sorry sorry about that. But hey, I got to tell you, well, you guys are too much. Chenrezig is perfect. He doesn't need a hair color. But anyway, but we're still human, remember? So we still need that.
That's right.
I was really worried the other week when I actually had to give myself a quarantine haircut. Actually, my husband ended up doing it. It turned out.
It looks great.
Wow.
It looks great.
I know. Yeah. Just don't look at this part over here. So anyway, but
Yeah, I recut my hair last night. Yeah, don't look at the back. I don't know what goes on back there.
yeah. Well, thanks to everybody. I know we're so crazy, right?
Well, the problem is I have to still work, so I have to kind of look decent, and that's hard when I don't want to pay all that money. I want to be exposed to people.
So being a sentient being is it really in samsara, there's a lot of stuff we have to think about and a lot of stuff.
I know it's a riot.
It's like Man, enlightenment will be so much easier. We don't have to think about these things, right?
Yeah.
But in the meantime, part of the reason that I thought this was a good place to leave off our the class to go to a break is because, hey, we were just now Chenrezig walking around our house. So, you know, it's pretty cool, right?
Very cool.
I know. So,
Oh, money, pay me home.
Om Mani Padme Hum. And so the next thing we're going to be talking about is this is the meaning of those final lines. Because of I'm already looking at my time, and Lamo, you know, I should have done it like we did the last one, going to 12:30, because it's kind
Oh,
of.
is this just till 12 today?
It's just till 12
Okay.
today. I kind of
You're fine.
But anyway, I want to recommend to everyone the outline and that that I have sent or attached to this. The outline contains absolutely everything that was just described. So if you couldn't take notes, felt that you couldn't take notes fast enough, and you're feeling maybe a little concerned, you know, like maybe I left something out of my notes, you don't have to worry too much because it's all there.
This is in lamakathy.net.
No, this one is, here it is here. A brief outline of the visualization for Chenrezig meditation. This was in the 3 handouts that were sent to you
Okay.
as part of your
Thank you. I'll look it up later.
For this event. So there's an elaborate instruction and a simplified instruction. And I'm going to call your attention to, looks like page 4. Yep, here it is, page 4. And this is what you are to do while you're reciting the mantra. And this is based on the 15th Karmapa's commentary. He said, first we enjoin the spirit of the deity through prayer. All sentient beings, including yourself, pray in unison, concentrating exclusively on Chenrezig, your root teacher, who is now clearly imagined above your head. Remember him? Then you pray with the feeling of asking Chenrezig to liberate yourself and all beings who drown in the ocean of samsara suffering. Thinking in this way, you recite the lines that begin Jowo Chenji Magu Kudokar, ending with Chenrezig La Chat Sa Lo. You may pray these lines depending on your ability, 100 or 21 times, 3 is fine, until you are definitely moved in your stream of being and the deity has become apparent and definite. The quotation marks are from the 15th Karmapa. If you wish, you can add any prayer that is full of blessing or inspiration. But second, we practice the absorption in the 3 faculties of the deity through emanating and gathering. To do this, we first, after praying the lines mentioned above, immeasurable light goes out in all directions of the 5 colors, but mainly white, radiates from the form of Chenrezig above your head and shines on all beings, including yourself. This light instantly washes away, and this is from the 15th Karmapa's commentary, quote, all present moral failings or weaknesses produced by defilements and the obscuration and unwholesomeness of unskillful actions accumulated by yourself and all beings from beginningless time. In other words, the veil of conflicting emotions is purified. And that also is the veil of negative karma, by the way. Then, secondly, since time without beginning, the propensity for bewilderment has both grasped externally at others and clung internally to a self. Now, when this light dispels the obscuration of discursiveness or the conceptual knowledge, meaning the veil of ignorance has been removed, you are blessed with the indivisible dynamics of the physical, verbal, and mental faculties of Chenrezig. This means you become Chenrezig in your body, speech, and mind. Visualize yourself in this way. Then the Chenrezig above your head becomes even more radiant, and his light pervades everywhere in the 6 realms, turning these realms into Dewa Chen, the realm of Amitabha, the Buddha realm of great bliss, has no earth, mountains, or stone. It is made entirely of light from rainbows and jewels. Each being in the 6 realms is liberated from his or her particular sufferings and is transformed into the clear and bright form of Chenrezig. And then I think, let's see if we go to page 5. Then also, so basically what happens is all beings become Chenrezig's form, and everything becomes form and emptiness. In other words, the whole world that we are in is Dewa Chen, which is made of light and insubstantial. And then all sound is like the sound of the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, which sound, if we look at its inner essence, it's not a material thing. It is the unity of sound and emptiness. So form is emptiness, sound is emptiness, and thought is awareness and emptiness. With the removal of the bewildered state of mind, such as discursive thought and memory, the mind of Chenrezig, inseparably aware and empty, is definitely present. Then the 15th Karmapa says, thus settle into the transcendent, extensive, and vastly encompassing state that is devoid of grasping, in which all physical appearances of yourself and others are identical with the pure manifestation of the deity in his Buddha realm, in which all speech and sound is mantra, in which each mind is identical with the deity's mind, awareness and emptiness. It says naked, void, emptiness, but they mean awareness and emptiness. And then we think of ourselves as being Chenrezig, and that all sound is the sound of his mantra. And this was the meaning that was requested by the person who in the chat was asking the question of what the meaning was of the idea of form as deity, sound as mantra, and thought as awareness and emptiness united. So what this means is we imagine Chenrezig purifies us of all of our veils, then we become Chenrezig, all beings become Chenrezig, and while we're reciting Om Mani Padme Hum, you know, the chant Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. We think that we're Chenrezig and the whole world is Dewa Chen, and everything is all sound is sound and emptiness, all form is form and emptiness, and all thought is awareness and emptiness. And in that way, we get to meditate as though we were already enlightened and that we already experienced the world in the way an enlightened being would experience it, which is a body, speech, and mind inseparable from emptiness. And this is what we can think about while we're chanting Om Mani Padme Hum. And so what will happen is that while we're reciting, from time to time, we'll think about like what happened yesterday or what's going to happen tomorrow or what's happening right now. But the instruction is to return our attention to ourselves as Chenrezig from the top of our head of our imaginary top knot to the bottom of the imaginary lotus flower beneath us and so forth. And by thinking in this way, we can kind of act as if we're already Chenrezig and already enlightened for even just a short period of time. It can be a very powerful way of meditating. Let's see if there's any other question. Okay, very good. Oh, emanating and gathering. The meaning of emanating and gathering is it's a way of describing what we project from this world and what we project of this world and what we receive from this world. So emanating and gathering. So what this means is that when we perceive something, and this is, I'm trying to think, this is coming from one of Khenpo Rinpoche's explanations for another sadhana, not for this one, but for another one. He gives it in his Karmapa explanation. What happens is when we perceive something, that perception or that appearance is happening in our mind. That appearance is happening in our mind. And so the appearance that is happening in our mind is really sort of a projection of what we believe to be out there. Khenpo Rinpoche called the things out there, he called them apparent objects. But how they appear in our mind is he called appearances. He said, so the appearances in our mind are not solid and they're not made of matter. And we can make the assumption that our experience in that way is happening inside our minds and is for us the experience of everything. So that's our emanation. The idea is emanating means that we basically have a perception of things external to us, but that perception is happening within us. It's almost like we're projecting that wall being out there, or projecting that table being out there, or projecting that image of Chenrezig as being out there. But it also comes from, it comes from our own mind. It's like, think of a projector and the screen. Emanating is what is on the screen, the projector is gathering. So I don't think that was a great explanation, but it's the best I can do in the circumstance. Should we receive the empowerment first before imagining ourselves as Chenrezig? That is ideal. These days, however, especially with the COVID epidemic, it's extremely difficult to get these empowerments. So technically, yes, but Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche and Trungpa Rinpoche have both said that medicine Buddha, for example, can be done by people who haven't had the empowerment. And Khenpo Rinpoche said that these instructions could be given to people who have not had the empowerment, because he said it's such a powerful, good thing to have these instructions on visualization of Chenrezig. It sort of overrides everything else, because he said it will help people to the extent that they have received these things. They'll benefit more if they have had the 3 permission blessings, which is the empowerment, where a master meditates that you're purified and then gives you the power to visualize yourself as the deity. The second is the reading transmission for the text, which comes essentially from the author of the text through a lineage of masters to you. That authorizes you to study and practice the text. And then finally, there's the practical instructions, which is how to visualize. So those are the 3 permission blessings. If time, can you do the lung? Unfortunately, Khenpo Rinpoche said that lungs could not be given over electronic means, because apparently they didn't exist at the time of the Buddha. So we got a little hang up there. So I apologize for that. We'll have to try to figure out how to make that happen for people. And so it says, so we are Chenrezig at the same time that Chenrezig is above ourselves. Yes, there are 2 Chenrezigs. There's the Chenrezig above your head, who is your guru and all enlightened beings. And then there's you and all sentient beings, says Chenrezig too. Now I have one more illustration to go over with you. I'm going to do the screen sharing again and come back to one more image. There's the mantra, by the way, Om Mani Padme Hum. But this is this illustration on the left. Let's see if I can make it bigger. Nope, I can't. There we go. Is a visualization that as you get experience doing the Chenrezig practice, you might wish to visualize the Chenrezig's mantra in your heart. So I don't know if you can see me, but as well as the thing I'm describing here, but you see the Om letter. It's as though the top letter is Om. And so if you can imagine that top letter as being the 12 on a clock face. So Om is at 12 o'clock, Ma is at 2 o'clock, Ni is at 4 o'clock, Pei is at 6 o'clock, Mei is at 8 o'clock, and Hong is at 10 o'clock. So if you looked at it, Om is at 12, Ma is at 2, Ni is at 4, Pei is at 6, Mei is at 8, and Hong is at 10. So if you think about it that way, and now imagine that that clock face is horizontal in your heart as Chenrezig. Because remember, your body is Chenrezig, made of light. There's no flesh and blood or sinews or bones inside your body. You're actually just this skin of light. And in your heart is this horizontal lotus flower with each of the letters standing up on them. And there's a Hri in the center, which you might say, hey, it looks like it's upside down. Bokar Rinpoche said he had it drawn that way because he said there are two ways to visualize the Hri. One of them is being read from in front, and the other is being read from the side. And he teaches it as being read from the front. But you can't necessarily see these letters. Remember, Khenpo Rinpoche said it's very difficult to visualize Tibetan letters when you're not used to it. So he said, so don't worry about it. He said you can see tiny spheres of light instead. And now I'm going to give you the colors. So if you're ready, you can take down the colors. The Hri letter in the middle, remember, is white. It's the color white. Also white is the letter Om, which is at 12 o'clock. Ma, which is at 2 o'clock, is green. Ma, 2 o'clock, green. Ni, 4 o'clock, yellow. Pei, 6 o'clock, light blue. Pei, 6 o'clock, light blue. May, 8 o'clock, red. May, 8 o'clock, red. Hong, blue black. And it is at 10 o'clock, blue black. Okay. Om, white. Ma, green. Ni, yellow. Pei, light blue. May, red. And Hong, blue black. Om Mani Padme Hum. And each of these 5 colors symbolizes one of the 5 wisdoms. I apologize. I did not bring my text that explains which of the wisdoms, the names of all of these wisdoms. There is a chart, and I will send it to you tomorrow by email. All of you who registered for the class will receive an email from me tomorrow with all of the letters of the mantra and all of the corresponding colors and all of the corresponding symbolisms and wisdoms. I do apologize for not having that ready for you today. But I will name them if that helps you. I will name the negative mental affliction that is associated with each syllable and color that is then purified. Om, white, at 12 o'clock is associated with the purification of pride, which is the cause for rebirth in the realm of the gods who live long lives, but they're still in samsara. Ma is green. It symbolizes the overcoming of the negative mental affliction of jealousy, the purification of jealousy, which results in rebirth in the realm of the demigods who are always fighting and always jealous. Ni at 4 o'clock symbolizes the purification of compulsive attachment, which results in rebirth in the realm of human beings, where we toil constantly to get all of the things that we feel we need. Pei is the overcoming of ignorance and bewilderment, which is the cause for rebirth in the animal realm. May, which is red and is at 8 o'clock on the lotus description, is the purification of stinginess or miserliness, not giving. It is the cause for rebirth in the hungry ghost realm. And the blue-black is the overcoming of aversion, which is the cause for rebirth in hell. So there you have it, the overcoming of pride, the overcoming of jealousy, the overcoming of compulsive attachment, the overcoming of ignorance, the overcoming of stinginess, and the overcoming of aversion or anger. And so all of these are symbolized by the letters of the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, and then Kri in the center. And so when you are doing long periods of mantra recitation, let's say you decide you're going to recite the mantra for 20 minutes. That's a long time. So let's say you're going to do like maybe, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, you're going to do like 20 minutes of mantra. You're going to have plenty of time to go over the diagram and look at all of the letters and make comments about in your mind, about what their meaning is. You can think about it in that way. So that's a little bit about how you can visualize and what you can absorb your mind in while you're reciting mantra for a very long time. Now you might say, this is all too much. I don't really can't feature myself doing this. I can't think about doing this. It's just too much. And the answer is, yeah, it's a lot. So here's the thing. These are not necessary to be done. If all you wish to do is to visualize yourself as Chenrezig, made of light, and that you're in a universe that's Dewa Chen, and you're with all sentient beings who are also Chenrezig, and that your guru is Chenrezig above your head, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to do more than that. It's not necessary to do more. These are just elaborations if you would like to do them. Because when we do this practice, we are imagining and visualizing ourselves as perfect Buddhas, just for a short period of time. And by visualizing ourselves as perfect Buddhas for a short period of time, we are performing what Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche called a concordant form of Mahamudra practice. We're thinking that our bodies are made of light and empty inside. Made of light and empty inside. And the made of light is a way of meditating on mind's luminosity or clarity aspect, and visualizing our bodies as being empty inside is a way of meditating on mind's emptiness or limitlessness, whichever of the two words you prefer. So the practice of Mahamudra is meditating on mind's luminosity and emptiness. But it's hard to do that. So instead, we use the visualization of ourselves as Chenrezig as a way of symbolically meditating on the nature of our minds as emptiness and luminosity. And Khenpo Rinpoche said in answer to a question asked to him that if we meditate on this over and over and over again, eventually, he said, it will become a genuine Mahamudra practice to meditate on yourself as Chenrezig and as the world is Dewa Chen and so on. So I'm going to hop back. I'm going to stop screen sharing for a second here and hop back and see if there's any questions. Oh yeah, we did get the question about the Kri, which is shown as upside down on the diagram because it's one of the ways it can be visualized from the front. Let's see. I received the Dalai Lama, one of his talks on his page. Is that valid too? Yeah, I'll tell you what, when we have Lama visits again, after the COVID crisis passes, we'll do our best to arrange a Chenrezig empowerment in Columbus so that everybody can attend. And there are great beings who, through their intention, can actually give lungs, which are reading transmissions, and wangs, which are empowerments. They can give reading transmissions and empowerments through electronic means, but I'm not in that category, so it's not going to happen from here. And thanks to Tom for enumerating all of the letters in the chat. Do the letters face in or out? They face inward. If we think about children playing Ring Around the Rosie, you know, the children's circle game, they're all facing the center and there's a child in the middle. And so if we think of these mantra letters as being like that, all of them face inward. Would you succinctly state the remedies for each of the 6 kleshas? Let's see. I think you could say that love is the easiest way to say that, because if we love others, then we don't feel prideful, meaning that we don't feel superior to them. And if we love others, then we don't feel jealous. And if we love others, we don't feel compulsively attached. If we love others, it dispels our ignorance, because the separation of self and other is what we're overcoming. And then if we practice love, then we do away with stinginess. And if we practice love, we do away with aversion or anger or hatred. So the Hong overcomes aversion, that's correct. Khenpo Rinpoche, in one of his talks in Columbus, said that love overcomes all of them. So the idea is that we can overcome basic selfishness with love. He told me, tell everybody they can become complete Buddhists simply by practicing love and compassion. Have an image that has ribbons flowing over his arms. Yes, the ribbons that are seen in pictures of Chenrezig is flowing. They're called scarves, and they are called activity scarves. And I think we're going to have to refer to an expert to make sure we get this right. But they're often called activity scarves, which means to me that it is symbolic of their activity in samsara to benefit beings. But that will just be a tentative answer. Are the 6 families also associated with Om Mani Padme Hum? Yes, that is correct. The 6 Buddha families, and when I send you the chart, those will be enumerated as well. Would we dissolve, would they elaborate on dissolving the image? Yeah, we're getting there. We're not quite there yet. In the long sadhana, is there any limit on what aspects of the Amitabha practice we can do without empowerment? I don't know the answer to that, but Khenpo Rinpoche said once that because they're paired, frequently Amitabha practice is paired with Chenrezig, since Chenrezig is of the Padma family or the Amitabha family. So I think we're probably fine to recite it. We're definitely fine to recite it in a group. Individually, I think that it's fine to go ahead and recite it without empowerment. So now we have described all kinds of methods for meditating while we are reciting Om Mani Padme Hum. We can meditate first on our body as being made of light and empty inside, and that we're Chenrezig. Second, we can visualize in our heart a lotus flower, a small lotus flower at the level of our heart, with a Hri in the center, Om Mani Padme Hum, standing up, facing inward to the letters of the mantra. We can think of all sentient beings being Chenrezig. We can think of the entire world as being Dewa Chen. Lots of things we can think about. And what's happening with all of these visualizations is that our Buddha nature is shining through with the clouds of our confusion dispelled. So in other words, we're visualizing a world that is full of love. We're visualizing a world and ourselves as being completely transformed by love. Because being completely transformed by love means all of our selfishness is now dispelled, and all of that selfishness is what creates our mental afflictions and causes us to be reborn again in samsara. So for just a moment, we can imagine what it's like to be a Buddha. For just a moment, we can imagine what it's like to live in an enlightened world. And for just a moment, we can mentally transform all the beings in this world, even the ones we have trouble with, into Chenrezig. And this dampens our aversion to others. And so now we're going to talk about the very last part of the sadhana. I'm going to do screen sharing again. And we're going to come back to the sadhana. Okay, so before we get to the post-meditation, you can see the post-meditation in the text says, the body of myself and others, all appearances are in the form of the exalted one. All sounds are the melody of the 6 syllables. All mental constructs are the expense of great primordial awareness. But before we get there, there's a dissolution. After we say Om Mani Padme Hum, as you'll see in the notes, under the topic of mantra, 3rd paragraph, at the conclusion of the mantra recitation, we see all beings as Chenrezig dissolve into light and merge with the Chenrezig above our head. The Chenrezig above our head, which is our guru and all sentient beings, then dissolves into light and merges with us through the top of our head. And then we feel that we and Chenrezig have indivisibly become one. And then we rest in that for a moment. And then we, as Chenrezig, dissolve into light and then into emptiness. The dissolution can be done in several ways. We could just imagine that we simply dissolve into light, disappearing into space like a rainbow disperses into space. Or we can dissolve our image of ourself from Chenrezig, from the bottom of the lotus flower beneath us to our heart, and from the top of our top knot down into our heart, into that lotus flower with Kri in the middle, Om Mani Padme Hum around the outside. All of those letters then dissolve into the Kri in the center, and the Kri from the bottom to the top. And that's depicted in the illustration that is here, where you see the two circles dissolve into Kri. Then the little Achung at the bottom dissolves into Kri. The Kri letter slowly dissolves from the bottom to the top into the little letter I, this curlicue. And then the little I then dissolves from edge to edge to the top of the letter, which is here. And then that letter becomes like a dot, and then that dot dissolves into utter emptiness. And so that's a little bit of a description of the dissolution for the Kri. And again, in the book Creation and Completion, it is explained that this is symbolism and a purification of the experience of death, in which our body dissolves into our mental constructs, and then our mental constructs dissolve into utter emptiness, and then we rest in utter emptiness. So this takes us to this resting in our mind's nature of emptiness. We've dissolved as Chenrezig completely. There's nothing left. And there's a moment of emptiness. And it lasts maybe 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds of this emptiness. And then when the first thoughts occur to us after this dissolution, we then think, I am Chenrezig. So what happens then is that when our normal way of thinking reasserts itself after having rested in emptiness for a few seconds, if when our normal thoughts resume, which might be what time is it, or where am I, or what's happening, we make our next thought, I am Chenrezig. And then we instantly revisualize ourselves as Chenrezig, the world as Dewa Chen, and all the other beings as Chenrezig. And that it is in this form that we conclude the chanting with the bodies, the line, the bodies of myself and others appear in the form of the exalted one. All sounds are the melody of the 6 syllables. All mental constructs are this expanse of great primordial wisdom. And then we dedicate the merit, saying, by virtue of this activity, may I quickly attain the state of the Lord Avalokiteshvara, and having done so, then establish all beings without exception in that same state. So, so there we have that part of it. I'm going to hang on here a second. I want to make sure. Let's see. Okay, Lamo. Calling on Lamo.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, so did you have something you wanted to say?
I did. I'm sorry I'm interrupting the visualization, though I don't want to do that, but.
Well, we're done.
But we're done. I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that there are several opportunities to do this practice with a group. If you go to YouTube, look up Karma Triyana Dharma Chakra. Every Thursday night, I think it's 7 o'clock, Khenpo Thangtong does a beautiful Chenrezig Amitabha practice. And it starts out with the Tashi prayer. It goes to Chenrezig, Amitabha, Guru Rinpoche, and then the long life prayers for the teachers. And also he usually does the Sakya prayer for the pandemic. But I want to show you, this is my camera. So you can get this text. It's a packet from Namse Bangso bookstore. And it includes all of those. Just look for the Chenrezig Amitabha packet. I think it's $11 or $13. And it's just marvelous because I'm very frustrated when I go onto YouTube and I'm not sure where they are or what texts they're doing. This is every Tuesday. And then, I'm sorry, and in Columbus KTC, we do it every Tuesday. Is that at 7 o'clock, I think, Lama Kathy?
Yeah, we're at 7 o'clock on Tuesdays, and they're
Tuesday.
at 7 o'clock on Thursdays.
On Thursday, yeah. So I just want to make sure all of you know that you can do group practice, and it's so powerful to do group practice. Thank you.
Yeah, the good thing about that Thursday night one on KT, which you can see on KTD's Facebook page, and you can also see on KTD Monastery's YouTube page. So those of you who are not on Facebook, you can still participate in this sadhana every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
Yep.
By watching the KTD YouTube page as well. So it'll be there.
And Khenpo Thangtong also does the English, which is very beautiful. So he's very passionate about the practice.
Yeah, it's super good. So that's, we are coming up toward the top of the hour, and I would like to beg your indulgence to go on for another 10 minutes if you're all okay. We will understand if you have to drop off, but I'd like to continue for another 10 minutes or so, so that we can make sure we cover any questions that you might have. I think that the main thing to say about this practice is that it gives us the opportunity to purify ourselves symbolically and to meditate on the most ultimate nature of mind through visualizing ourselves as Chenrezig, made of light and empty inside. The Dalai Lama himself, in 2006, when he was teaching on this at KTD Monastery, said that this was symbolic practice on the nature of mind itself. And this is why it helps us to uncover our Buddha nature. By imagining we dispel the ignorance of our veils And by imagining that we manifest the compassion of Chenrezig, the compassion and wisdom of Chenrezig, we can symbolically meditate upon these most ultimate parts of ourselves. Somebody's asking about merit. Merit, I like to think of merit as being virtuous karma, and as such, it is like establishing an atmosphere within our mind. So for example, if we're busy thinking about like, how am I going to get even with that person I'm mad at? Or we're worried about like, well, you know, what's going to happen to this thing? Is somebody going to steal my stuff? Or when we're thinking of non-virtuous things, our mind becomes dark and heavy and very difficult. But when we think of things like the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and when we think of the 3 jewels of refuge, or we think of Chenrezig, or we think of mantra, our mind is reflecting our very best qualities of awakening. And in that way, merit is, instead of saying accumulating merit, we could also say we are accumulating a virtuous state of mind. Khenpo Rinpoche said that when we accumulate a virtuous state of mind, that virtuous state of mind itself comes to fruition as a feeling of well-being and happiness. So that's a little bit about merit. Will this teaching later be seen again on the KTC page? I think what we're going to do with today's teaching is, because it was recorded, I will send a link. I will upload it to Dropbox and give the link to all of you so that you can watch it. I don't think we're going to be doing it as a video. I think we will be doing it as an audio, and you can listen to it anytime. So, and I'll put a link to it on my Facebook page if people want to see it. So, Lamo, would you like to share a little bit with us here at the conclusion about?
There is one thing pressing. I remember when I first became Buddhist, and I still have this feeling with me all the time. I think most Buddhists do. You learn about the suffering that we have. We already sort of know that personally, but we slowly start realizing that you're not the only one out there suffering. You start learning about all the different realms, and even within our own realm, the suffering of not getting what you want and getting what you don't want, et cetera, et cetera. Chenrezig practice is so powerful because during the practice, as Lama Kathy said, especially if you get to do the mantra for more than 1 second, you can spend a moment and start visiting each realm and praying that may all that suffering be removed. And it's a way to feel like you're doing something for others. I think that's an underlying condition a lot of Buddhists have of wanting to help. And I think it really opened my heart to realize that there's other ways out there to help versus physically being in hospital or wherever. So I just wanted to share that I think this is the beauty of this practice. Thank you.
Yeah, I really think this is good because when we know that we have Buddha nature, it can sometimes seem like it's 1,000 miles away. It's something we could never touch. But when we do this kind of practice, it brings it closer to us and it makes it more immediate. So I think that this is, to me, the beauty of this practice is that we can repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. This is how human beings learn everything, is through repetition. And through doing this practice again and again and again, we are nurturing and watering the seeds of our good karma to manifest as Chenrezig. And so it's my hope, and I just thank you, Lamo, for sharing that point of view, because I think that for many of us, we have to kind of like imagine enlightenment first, before we can even begin to cultivate it. And being able to visualize a world that's transformed and being able to visualize ourselves as being transformed in this way is a powerful thing. So it's like,
I think that's the beauty of Vajrayana. We see that there's this perfection out there, but in the very moment, we can do something about it. And I think that's really important. Thank you.
mm-hmm. it's absolutely true. And I see in the chat that someone is thanking you, Lama, for your working with victims in the hospital, because the COVID is everywhere, and it's we want you to stay safe there,
Oh, most hospitals are really protective of the chaplains. We really can't go in. I spend more time with staff, but I'm not the hero. I can tell you the heroes are those that just come back every day for more to help out.
Mm-hmm.
My heart is so touched by what people do there. They're so selfless.
Mm-hmm. It's like there are bodhisattvas among us in every imaginable form,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm just feeling some gratitude here for all of you being able to put up with the Zoom format and all of the problems that are inherent in doing online teaching programs, and to thank you for bringing your goodness and your sincerity to the program with us today. Because if you think about it, here we are all over the world. We've got the folks who are coming to us from Switzerland and England. I think Jacob, who was here from England, and then lots of places in the U.S. And everybody's thinking about and reflecting their very best selves, which is our Buddha nature. And so I want to thank you for being patient with all of the difficulties. I wanted to teach this full version of the Chenrezig visualization because it helped me so much in my life. As I was saying in part one, for those of you who were here in part one, the 16th Karmapa gave Chenrezig practice to us as his first students in the United States, the 16th Karmapa. And he was asked about why the mantra Om Mani Padme Hung should be recited by his students in America. And he said, oh, Chenrezig, oh, compassion, good for America. I think, as I mentioned last time, that he understood the karma of our nation, that it was founded in violence, and that it was founded in violence against specific groups of people. It was founded by people who practiced slavery. It was founded by people who hurt the Native Americans who were living here, and with a lot of cruelty. And I think he knew we had some karma to purify. And he knew that there were angry people here and that we needed to purify our anger and all of our mental afflictions. And so what was the best medicine he could give us? The medicine of compassion. So I feel more and more as though the 16th Karmapa was incredibly wise in giving this as a practice for us to do. So for now, we'll have to sign off. I do apologize. I was going to hope that we could talk a little bit about the sadhana. Maybe I can, just for another minute or so, ask Lamo, the last time you were able to talk about the refuge prayer and how to pronounce the refuge prayer using the Tibetan transliteration. Could we just do the refuge prayer for the heck of it? Cover that for maybe a few minutes, and then we'll close for today.
So I don't know if anyone has that right in front of them.
I'll put it on
the prayer we always say. Oh yes, I don't know.
I'll put it on the screen.
Great.
Yeah, hang on a minute.
And while Lama Kathy is doing that, I just want to put a plug in. I believe in August, I'm going to be teaching a Medicine Buddha workshop.
Yep.
And everyone is invited to come to that.
First Saturday in, I think it's, I'm sorry, it's the 8th.
No.
The second
It's
Saturday.
August 9th.
August, okay, thank you.
No, August 8th. August 8th, yes.
Saturday, August 8th, be there, and you'll see it. You can find it on Eventbrite. So we'll be there.
Yeah, it should be on Facebook soon. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so as we see this, this is transliterated, but this is done very well because so in most Tibetan chants, so each of these will just call a line, the Sanjay, and then the Jangchu, then Dagdi, and then Jola. And let's see, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So in this text, this prayer, each line has 9 syllables. And so the real trick to chant it is, I'm going to exaggerate, and you do coupling, you do 2, 2, 2, 3. So Sanjay, Chidang, Soki, Chognamla. And it really helps when you do that way, when you start reading this and there's all these weird words you don't know, then you start realizing that it's easier to read if you realize the rhythm of it. Now, I'm talking about pronunciation. Sometimes you see dots, and in English, we don't use umlauts. But on the third word, the CHO, you see 2 dots there over the O. And it goes from, like, instead of cho, it's really ch or ch. And then if there's a U, it's ch. It's pronounced a little different. So it's Sanjay, Chidang, Soki, Chognamla. And a lot of the ending Ks are very light, almost like a G. Sometimes it's written as a G, in fact. And then it's Jiangchu, Bardu, Dagni, Kyapsu, Chi. So you notice I didn't say Jiangchu. It's just Jiangchu. The ending syllable is very light. So Jiangchu, Bardu, Dagni, Kyapsu, Chi, and Dagi, Jinso. See, I almost sort of swallowed the K. Yipe, Sunan Ki, Drola, Penchir, Sanjay, Drupar Shok. And then the Drola, Penchir, the cheater, is a very light roll of the R. But I just wanted to introduce that to you. So sometimes you'll have only 7 syllables. Like the next line, I think, is the Dak Sok, in the next prayer, 1, 2. So again, this would be 2, 2, 3 instead of 2, 2, 2, 3. So Dak Sok, Kakyap, Semchengi. So if you're at home and you're chanting this, it's a nice way to chant it if you forget the tune. But there's no excuse to forget the tune because you just plug in your phone, you know, or your watch YouTube. It's everywhere now. But I just wanted to kind of introduce that to you. Thank you, Lama Kathy.
Oh,
I
you're
know
welcome.
time is tight right now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate this. I'm happy that we had this opportunity to talk about Chenrezig today. And I have to tell you how happy I am to see so many of you in Chenrezig practice. And I'm just thrilled that we've had this time. And I want to call upon all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and pray for all of you, that all of you have the blessing of connecting to your Buddha nature and the blessing of coming to a realization of your Buddha nature through these practices. And please feel free to stay in contact with us, because my email is on, my return email is on the Eventbrite event information that you receive, so you can write anytime. And with questions, I always tell people, give me 3 days to respond. If you haven't heard from me in 3 days, please write again, because I will have forgotten or it will have fallen to the bottom. But feel free to contact me with your questions. I'll pull together all of the merit that we've accumulated today. And thank you especially to Lamo for helping out with the pronunciation and so on. And also dedicate the merit of all of us here, as well as all sentient beings, all of the merit from the past, the present, and the future. Gathering it all together, we pray for all sentient beings who are suffering from lack of love in all ways, and that they may be filled, and that goodness and justice and peace come to all of the earth and everywhere. I'll recite the short dedication prayer in English. Through this merit, may all achieve the omniscience of Buddhahood. May it defeat our common enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may we free all beings. May we free all beings. May we free all beings. Okay, thanks to everyone. So I'll unmute you here. Let's see if we can make it happen. Okay, I don't know how to unmute everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you, Lama
much.
Kathy. Thank you, Lama.
You guys are the best.
you, Lama
Thank you
Cat.
to both of you.
Keep reciting the mantra. Okay.
Your husband did a lovely job with your haircut.
Oh, thank you. I'll
Thank
tell my
you.
husband. I'll tell my husband. Yeah. Way to
Thank
go.
you, Lama
Yeah.
Kathy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Okay. Here we go.
Bye.